Hello, folks, and welcome back to Rugby Ascendant. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania with an update of rugby from around the world, the Rugby Roundup here on Rugby Ascendant. Well, first off, British and Irish Lions legend, former coach Sir Ian McGeechan has called for the inclusion of the Springboks into the Six Nations. Sam Cane re-signs with the All Blacks through 2025. Bulls director of rugby Jaco Wyatt, the Rugby World Cup winning coach from 2007, assures Bulls fans that the scrum will be repaired. We'll see. After they got mauled at Kings Park in Durban, 30-16 over the weekend. Terrible, atrocious scrum from the Bulls. United Rugby Championship is committed to completing all fixtures in spite of the Omicron hysteria. In Cape Town, a crowd-limited, fully jabbed audience of just 2,000 fans. Despite folks being fully jabbed, only 2,000 were permitted to attend the match between the Stormers and Lions. But nonetheless, at that, 2,000 fans warmly and emotionally greet the Lions' Yanni Duplessis, who of course just lost his 10-month-old son in a tragic drowning at a pool on his 37th birthday. Folks gave him a warm welcome as he came in as a replacement in the second half. Major League Rugby news here in the U.S. Old Glory re-signs Renata Roberts-Tanana for the 2022 season. And the San Diego Legion have re-signed Nate Augspurger, USA Eagle, for the next season. In Dubai over the weekend, we saw a pretty interesting tournament, a back-to-back HSBC 7 series in Dubai, 2 weekends in a row. The first weekend, no fans, and the winners were the South African Blitzbok, the Springboks, and also the Australian women won on their side. And what do we get in the second week? A repeat, although it was a near thing for the South Africans as the Aussie men nearly pulled it off. But J.C. Pretorius saves the Blitzbok bacon in that event. Well, first off, Lions legend wants the Springboks in the expanded 7 nations. Well, I argue let's just go to 8 nations. Why don't we just add Georgia in there, folks? I mean, what's wrong with adding Georgia? Let's put Georgia in the mix. That gives it the 8 nations. Springboks are coming. Let's get Georgia. Georgia's been consistently competitive in international test matches. Why not get them in there? They've been asking to join the 6 nations for several years, and they've been fobbed off and ignored by the good old boys club in the British Isles. Maybe it's time to change that. Why go to 7 nations with an odd number? Just go to 8. Make it even. There you go. Legendary British and Irish Lions coach Ian McGeechan says he'd like to see the 6 nations become the 7 nations with South Africa added. In a column for The Telegraph, he said he supported the view that the Bucks are playing up north. He said the obvious next step is for some sort of integrated season which sees the Springboks join the 6 nations to make it the 7 nations. Financially, it's in the interest of everyone, and it will also be beneficial in terms of raising the standards for England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, and Italy. Well, what will it do for the Springboks? That's what I'm interested in. Now, the Rugby Championship will continue to be the flagship of the Southern Hemisphere rugby for the next decade, and as in the past, it will be a key driver and pathway for the union's continued success at the highest levels of the game, including Rugby World Cup, according to a statement from SANZAR, the governing body of the Rugby Championship. That's what SANZAR has to say about the Rugby Championship. It's going to continue, and South Africa is part of it for now. But again, as I said, McGeechan wants to see the Springboks added to this. There you have it. Wales Online, today's rugby headlines, as Lions legend calls for South Africa to join the 6 nations. South Africans are investing in our rugby. Their top clubs are now playing in our competitions, and many of their best players are training and playing alongside 6 nations internationals every week. Playing with and against South Africans challenges you to become able to withstand their physicality, which is to the long-term benefit of the Northern Hemisphere game. You only got to talk to coaches in New Zealand to understand the benefits of exposure to South African rugby. One of the reasons why the All Blacks have been so good in the professional era is that they've had to play South Africa multiple times each year. While the South African provinces have been weakened by so many players heading abroad, playing the Springboks regularly has kept New Zealand's national team honest by mandating that it will have to produce forwards who can stand up to the physical onslaught brought by South Africa. To which I have to say that's a pretty good analysis why the All Blacks have been so dominating. They do play top South African teams, and only once in living memory have they slaughtered the Springboks, and of course that was during Alistair Coetzee term as the coach. Meanwhile, speaking of the All Blacks, Sam Cane, the flanker who plays for the Chiefs, he's re-signed with the All Blacks. That's the story here, folks. Sam Cane has re-signed with the All Blacks. Yep, the flanker who has 126 matches to his credit for the Chiefs and 77 tests for his home nation of New Zealand has signed with the All Blacks through until 2025. He's excited about that, and it's good news. Recently was a captain when they came to the U.S., and he performed as captain for the All Blacks. Meanwhile, after the atrocious showing of the Bulls at Kings Park in Durban this weekend. Jaco Wyatt, the director of rugby for the Bulls, based in Pretoria at Loftus-Versfeld, assures fans that the scrum will be fixed. Well, some of us who watched that game wonder how exactly that's going to be accomplished. The scrum was the Achilles heel of the Bulls this past weekend, and when they were whitewashed by the Sharks, 30-16. Jaco Wyatt on Bulls scrum woes. We will rectify this. Well, Jake, you are an impresario of rugby, but we are a little less confident in that. The Sharks bossed the scrums with their front row of Mchundu, Bongiam Banambi, and Thomas Dutoit, giving the Bulls Gerhard Steenkamp, Bismarck Duplessis, and Robert Hall all sorts of problems, particularly on the tight head side where the Bulls struggled badly with Hunt, a new recruit from Varsity Cup, given a rude awakening. Well, indeed. So there's a lot of work ahead for the Bulls to fix this. How they're going to fix it, I don't know, but there's a lot of work ahead. Meanwhile, the United Rugby Championship, the competition that was the Guinness Pro 12, Guinness Pro 14, and now is the URC, dropping the Cheetahs and the Southern Kings, who are bankrupt and out of business, but the Cheetahs are still around, and incorporating the other South African sides of the Sharks, the Stormers, the Lions, and the Bulls. The URC is committed, despite the Omicron hysteria, to completing all fixtures. Now, the spanner was thrown in, the wrench was thrown in the monkey works this past 2 weekends as the teams from Wales and Ireland went down there and weren't able to compete and had to get out of town as quickly as possible. 2 teams still trapped in South Africa. And the derbies that took place this past weekend were the South African sides, with the Lions traveling to Cape Town and the Bulls traveling to Durban. But those were games scheduled for later in the season that were moved forward. So now what happens? Well, the URC is committed, but what does that commitment mean? They don't have control of the rules of the British Isles and the British and Irish governments for control over entry into the country. Currently, there is an international travel ban from South Africa. No flights can leave South Africa and arrive in the United Kingdom. In an emotional welcome, Yanni du Plessis, the Springbok and now Lions player who came on as a replacement in the second half, he recently lost his son in a drowning incident during his 37th birthday. His 10-month-old son drowned in a pool of fans. The 2,000 who are allowed into the massive stadium at Greenpoint in Cape Town gave him a warm, emotional welcome. Yanni du Plessis coming back on the pitch just days after his son passed away, tragically. Very emotional moment during the United Rugby Championship clash between the Stormers and Lions when former Springbok Yanni du Plessis entered the fray as a replacement. Recently lost his young son in a drowning incident. It was warmly applauded by the small crowd of 2,000 at Cape Town Stadium. He's made his way on in the 67th minute. Now, the crowd was limited. Everyone who was there had to be fully jabbed. Nonetheless, they still limited the crowd coming in. Interesting. Well, Old Glory, DC Old Glory has re-signed a key player. That is Renata Roberts-Tanana. They've re-signed him outside back for the 2022 Major League Rugby season. 28-year-old New Zealander returns to the nation's capital for a third year. He's an indispensable member of the team in his 2 seasons to date, appearing in all 21 of the games, including 19 starts. He played 99% of all possible minutes in the previous season and scored a team-high 5 tries. Showed his versatility at outside center and fullback in addition to his preferred left-wing position. So Robertson has been a key component of Major League Rugby's Old Glory DC. Meanwhile, the San Diego Legion have re-signed USA Eagle Nate Augspurger for another season. Nate Augspurger signed for a 5th season with San Diego Legion. The 31-year-old scrum half has been with the team since their inception, making all 31 appearances since the 2018 inaugural campaign. 11 of those, he was the captain. The Dubai Sevens was quite interesting this past weekend. The previous weekend, no crowds in Dubai. The Blitzbach and the Aussie women win the men and women's tournaments. And we come back for a repeat of the exact same tournament. And in this tournament, on the second try, there were crowds. Massive crowds once again in Dubai. It was great to see people out there. But JC Pretorius saved the bacon for the Blitzbach. They were down late in the game, trailing 7-5, when he made a brilliant move, picked up the ball, stunned the Australians, and scored a try with about 3 minutes left in the game. But the Australians had a chance, and they nearly pulled it out. Unfortunately, a knock-on for them down around about the 8 or 10 meter mark, just in front of the Springboks try line, kept them from scoring, and the Blitzboks were able to knock it out, win the game 10-7 for back-to-back 26 consecutive games they've won, I believe now. They've definitely won 4 consecutive tournaments. They won the entire 2021 season, which was an abbreviated season with just 2 tournaments in Canada, closing everything off and keeping almost no fans attending it. That was in Vancouver and then Edmonton. They win those 2 tournaments, and then they've won 2 back-to-back tournaments in Dubai for 4 consecutive tournaments. Clearly the class of the men's game. While the Black Ferns and the All Blacks remain off the pitch, New Zealand's also the same place that canceled the Women's Rugby World Cup this year and postponed it till next year. when they can make you sit for 2 weeks in a hotel at your expense, even though you're fully jabbed and not sick or showing any symptoms. Whatever the case is, the Women's World Cup is delayed till next year, and the Black Ferns are not participating in HSBC thus far, and neither are the All Blacks. With the All Blacks out, it's less of an impact on the men's side, although it does have an impact. But on the women's side, the Black Ferns are definitely the class. And with their absence, the Australian women have stepped up and become the class of the women's game. So Dubai, congratulations to South Africa and to the Australian women who've won back-to-back tournaments there. Amazing stuff. Meanwhile, in the United Rugby Championship, a very interesting, fascinating moment took place when Jaco Peiper, World Rugby official, pulled aside Bongi Mbonambi and Bismarck du Plessis, two former Springboks. Well, Bongi is still a Springbok, but Bismarck's a former Springbok. Two Springboks, and admonished them for their whining and moaning and complaining and disrespecting officials. It was a poignant moment. Jaco, the lawyer himself, dealt with it clearly and honestly and fairly, and the gentleman played the game as professionals after that. Interesting moment. Well, that's the Rugby Roundup for this week. It's the 6th of December. Don't know how often I'll do this, but there was a lot of news over the weekend, so I thought I'd do this Rugby Roundup. Folks, thanks for tuning in to Rugby Ascendant. We appreciate it. Be sure to smash the like button and become a subscriber. It's right down there. Appreciate you following the channel. Take care.